Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday, October 14th at 12:21. I had a few thoughts about the Nebraska game. Wanted to share them with you as Purdue gets ready to welcome Nebraska to Ross-Ade for a 7:30 kickoff tomorrow, Saturday. Pretty big game for both teams. I think it's something that it's kind of fun to be atop the division, even for a short time, even if it's early in the season. And both teams are sitting atop the West Division of the Big Ten, and the winner will have the outright first place position, with Illinois and Minnesota breathing down their necks. Really, Illinois, Minnesota tomorrow is also a big game. It feels to me like it's a classic Minnesota game, a way to push a pretender out of the way. And then you'd have just Minnesota right behind Purdue or Nebraska in that case. We'll see what happens. But fun game, and I had a couple statistical analysis thoughts that I wanted to share with you. I thought they were really interesting, and I want to give them to you. That's really the main reason for doing this pregame. First, before I do it, let me thank our sponsors. Thanks to Martin Vintage. Head over to martinvintage.com. I don't know if you can see this. I've got the astronaut shirt on right now. It's one of my favorites from Martin Vintage. Head over there, enter Boiled at checkout, get 15% off. Classic Purdue styling, Purdue family, you know the whole deal. Comfortable shirts, martinvintage.com. And then, of course, when on campus tomorrow for the Nebraska game, get there early, get some lunch, enjoy some games when you can do your tailgating at AJ's. If before you go over there, you want to pre-order, head over to eataj's.com and get some mac and cheese bites, some funnel cake fries, some Italian beef, a burger. The world is your oyster when you're at AJ's. So head over to AJ's on Vine, eataj's.com before, and tell them your pal Boiler Dowd at Boiled Sports sent you. So let me tell you the things that got my attention. I did a little bit of a look at some stats before this game, really before looking at Nebraska. Just we're at the midway point. Purdue is 4-2. They're in a pretty solid position, probably in a position a lot of you thought they'd be in at this point. Maybe they didn't get here the way you thought they would. Same with me. But in 2021, Purdue scored in the first 6 games of that season, 23.7 points a game and allowed 14 points a game. And this year so far, the offense is actually in better rhythm. They scored 32.2 points a game and have allowed 22 points a game. I think almost everybody would say who's watched Purdue, they'd say, man, if they could put a game together, they could do some amazing stuff on offense. And they really haven't done that yet. In spite of that, they're scoring at a better clip than they did last season, and they're allowing fewer points. Both really good signs. But you say, oh, Boiler Dowd, they did play Indiana State. They did, that's true. But they also played Connecticut last season. The parallels of this season and last season so far are pretty great. Last season, there were 4 bowl teams in the first 6 games. This season, it looks to be there are 4 bowl teams unless one of them falls apart or something weird happens, but 4 bowl teams in both. And both seasons, you had a top 10-ish type team in that first 6 games. It was Notre Dame last year, and this year it's Penn State. Very interesting parallels, I think. And then in the next 6 games, also interesting, very similar. It looks like there are 3 bowl teams to me in the final 6 games for Purdue, and there are 3 bowl teams in the final 6 games for Purdue last year and this year. Also noteworthy, I had one other point that I wanted to look at. I think that these teams are, I know what it was. The final 4 games of last year. Everybody talks and everybody remembers those final 4 games, that offensive display that Aiden O'Connell and company put on last year was incredible. But really that offense didn't get rolling until those last 4 games. And it carried over into that 5th last game, the bowl game, of course. So if this team is anything like last year, there's another gear that some of you talked about in the comments after the last QuickCast and the last Handsome Hour as well. I think there is another gear. Now, will they find it versus Nebraska? I don't know. Nebraska's playing pretty good football. They're pretty solid. Their fans seem to think that they're incredible. If you listen to them on Twitter, which is amazing, the hubris of that fan base. If you're listening here, I'm talking to you, Nebraska fan. It's a weird thing to say, Your team was so bad that you got a coach fired who was your favorite son, by the way. Don't revise it. Don't change it. You guys were in absolutely mad, passionate love for Scott Frost just months ago, and now you've run him out of town, and yet things are fantastic in Lincoln. No problem. That's a very, very unusual place to argue from, a very unusual place to put your post in the ground, but whatever. Nebraska does look pretty solid right now. They're playing better than they have. I watched a quick Nebraska podcast, a random one was suggested to me, and he assured Nebraska fans that this game was like the Super Bowl for Purdue fans because it's a sellout. No, this game is not like the Super Bowl for Purdue fans or the Purdue team. This is another game that Purdue hopes to win. Purdue will be prepared to play the game, and the Purdue fans will be ready to go. Purdue, I would say so far, if there's been a Super Bowl this year, it was the Penn State game so far, if you want to be real honest, Nebraska fans. So just to let you know what we're thinking about the game. It's a big game. Looking forward to it. Hope Purdue can win. Think Purdue can win. But at the same time, I think Purdue has to play a little bit better, get the offense going a little bit more. Another interesting parallel between this season and last season. We'll get back to that. Last year, Horvath was out with a broken leg for a good chunk of the season. This year, King Daru has been out for a big chunk of the season. King Daru is going to dress, and he's going to try to give it a go. Interestingly enough, Purdue is now down a running back, and so it's going to be Maccabee's job this week, and maybe Daru will come in and be second string or spell him as needed. I still don't understand the nature of Daru's injury, but Maccabee has looked pretty good, and the offensive line has helped him look good. That's been a really good thing. I think Nebraska is pretty good up front. They got very good defensive ends. So it could be a fun game. Nebraska's strength on offense, of course, they got a big receiver on the outside. It would be a great time to see Trice play the way he's capable of playing. Jefferson, of course, is out, and Graham is back again. I think Graham will have a huge game. I'm looking at 9 or 10 tackles again, like last week, and I think he might even get a sack. I think they'll start using him a little bit more on the blitz. So I'm looking forward to that. That's about all I had for you. I'm only about 7 minutes in. There's a couple people in the margins. I didn't announce that this was coming, but Todd Singer and Mark, thanks for tuning in. Todd says he's making the trip, hoping for a comfortable Boiler victory. That'd be great. As you guys know, Vegas has Purdue as a 13.5 point favorite, and I don't like that at all. If you look at the kind of head-to-head type statistics, I think Purdue and Nebraska have a similar schedule thus far. There's some weak teams in there and some good ones in there too. But Purdue has allowed fewer points. Purdue has scored more points. Purdue's offense is doing a little bit better than Nebraska's. Aiden O'Connell, and that's even without Aiden O'Connell in one game and having another lackluster game. I think if we can see Purdue get into rhythm, there's a chance that Yassine will play at wide receiver. That's good. He dressed last week, but he wasn't ready to play. So I think if you have another weapon for the wideouts, that'll be a big deal. Rice and O'Connell are starting to get on the same page. And, of course, Payne Durham and AOC got very, very much in rhythm last week, and Payne Durham ripped off a big one. I don't know if he'll be able to do that versus Nebraska just because I think their corners are bigger than Maryland's, and part of the reason that play worked out so well is Durham just flat out bullied those guys as he went down the field. Mark Garrity says, hoping Nebraska comes in overconfident after a close win against Rugger. Also hope that it doesn't turn into a trap game for our Boilers. I don't know if I don't think it's that type of game where it should become a trap game. But just got to handle every game like it's a big deal, and I think Purdue's going to be just fine. So I hope Nebraska's confident, overly confident. I hope they're excited to see a real sellout because their coach said that Rutgers was underwhelming to them. So it's always a funny thing to me hearing coaches talk trash about another fan base. I don't ever get that. I don't know if it does you any good because it comes back to bite you in the ass eventually. Even if he's a interim, that'll become bulletin board material at some point. So I don't ever think it's a good idea. Todd Singer has a great point. Purdue needs to get pressure on Nebraska's quarterback. There's no doubt. They need to get more pressure. They need to dial it more. Sindor was important last week. 2 tackles for a loss. One of those is a sack. And if he can get there, that'd be great. And also I'd like to see him return a little bit to what they did against Penn State. And they actually did more of last year, which we haven't seen much of, is blitzing from the corner and safety position. Just to keep people guessing. We haven't seen a whole bunch of that this year, so that'd be good. Todd Singer says he thinks Doru has a calf injury, and I heard it was lower body, but I don't know. So they thought he would maybe go a little bit sooner, but if he had a muscle strain or a partial tear or whatever, that's awfully hard on a running back to get back to health quickly. So that's about it for me today. Thanks for tuning in. Pretty good QuickCast, right at 10 minutes. High octane, way we like to do it. Have a great day. God bless you. Hammer down. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.